Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत श्री गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड की गोदाम की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। मथुरा धाम की जय। मायापुर धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगा मई जमुना मई की जय। तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। समवेत भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, Premanande, Hare Hare.
Hari Hari Bol. Jai Jai Jai. Thank you so much, Mahesh Pandit Prabhu. And welcome to everyone for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami and friends. It is Friday, June 28th, 2024 in New York. And tonight we're reading in third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 33, starting with text number 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. These verses are being spoken by Devahuti to her son Kapila Deva.
Your sound isn't coming through, Guru Maharaj.
I have 4. Are we 4 or 5?
We read 4 last time.
Okay. Good.
All right. So, text 5. Tvam deha tantra prashamaya papmanam nidesha bhajam cha vibho vibhutaye yatavataras tavasukaradayas tatayam apyatma patopalabdhaye. My dear Lord, you have assumed this body in order to diminish the sinful activities of the fallen and to enrich their knowledge in devotion and liberation. Since these sinful people are dependent on your direction, by your own will you assume incarnations as a boar and as other forms. Similarly, you have appeared in order to distribute transcendental knowledge to your dependents. In the previous verses, the general transcendental qualifications of the Supreme Personality of Godhead were described. Now the specific purpose of the Lord's appearance is also described. By his different energies, he bestows different kinds of bodies on the living entities who are conditioned by their propensity to lord it over material nature. But in course of time, these living entities become so degraded that they need enlightenment. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that whenever there are discrepancies in the discharge of the real purpose of this material existence, the Lord appears as an incarnation. The Lord's form as Kapila directs the fallen souls and enriches them with knowledge and devotion so that they may go back to Godhead. There are many incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, like those of the boar, the fish, the tortoise, and the half-man, half-lion. Lord Kapila Deva is also one of the incarnations of Godhead. It is accepted herein that Lord Kapila Deva appeared on the surface of the earth to give transcendental knowledge to the misguided, conditioned souls. Om Jnana Timirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Right in the middle of the purport, Prabhupada mentions, or he refers to Bhagavad Gita 4:7, where Krishna also personally describes how there's a whole mission of incarnations meant to uplift everyone. And there are a couple of statements that Prabhupada makes in that purport that resonates so strongly with this purport that we just read that I thought I'd like to read them. That he says, each and every avatar or incarnation of the Lord has a particular mission. Yes, And then earlier in that, he says the Vedic principles push one towards complete surrender unto him. I was thinking of that in conjunction with what he says here, just going between windows here. He says that in course of time, these living entities become so degraded that they need enlightenment. So this is similar to the principle of hitting rock bottom before you start to make any progress upward. That the living entities, yeah, there are two purposes to the creation. One is you forget Krishna. And the other purpose is Krishna tries to give you opportunities to remember. But in between those, there's some rock bottom moment for many living entities where a decision is made to go one direction or just to stay on the bottom. And for that purpose, Krishna makes himself available in so many ways, in so many forms. Like he says here in the purport to 4.7, the Vedic principles push one toward complete surrender unto him. And so all these things together gave me a greater appreciation of Krishna's mission, how this whole world that we see, all the manifestations, depending on your bent or your desire, it's either there for you to continue to forget or to remember and continue to remember. And I'd be so happy to hear from Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Hope.
I don't have more to add here. I think you covered the territory well. And we have important verses coming up.
Yes, indeed. The next one's very important. I recognized it right away. So any other comments or questions on this particular verse? If not, we can move along. Radhesha Prabhu, would you be ready to read our next verse?
Sure, I can read the next verse. Yeah, the next two are so wonderful for those of us who are of sinful background, us Westerners. All right, I'll just read it. Yad namadheya shravananu kirtanat yad prafvanad yad smaranad api kvachit shvadopi sadya savanaya kalpate kuta punaste bhagavan nudarshanat. To say nothing of the spiritual advancement of persons who see the Supreme Person face to face, even a person born in a family of dog eaters immediately becomes eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices if he once utters the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or chants about him, hears about his pastimes, offers him obeisances, or even remembers him. Herein, the spiritual potency of chanting, hearing, or remembering the holy name of the Supreme Lord is greatly stressed. Rupa Goswami has discussed the sequence of sinful activities of the conditioned soul, and he has established in Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu that those who engage in devotional service become freed from the reactions of all sinful activities. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. The Lord says that he takes charge of one who surrenders unto him, and he makes him immune to all reactions to sinful activities. If by chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one becomes so swiftly cleared of all reactions to sinful activities, then what is to be said of those persons who see him face to face? Another consideration here is that persons who are purified by the process of chanting and hearing become immediately eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices. Generally, only a person who is born in a family of Brahmanas, who has been reformed by the 10 kinds of purificatory processes, and who is learned in Vedic literature, is allowed to perform the Vedic sacrifices. But here the word sadhya immediately is used. And Sridhar Swami also remarks that one can immediately become eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices. A person born in a family of the low caste, which is accustomed to eat dogs, is so positioned due to his past sinful activities. But by chanting or hearing once in pureness or in an offenseless manner, he is immediately relieved of the sinful reaction. Not only is he relieved of the sinful reaction, but he immediately achieves the result of all purificatory processes. Taking birth in a family of a Brahmana is certainly due to pious activities in one's past life. But still, a child who is born in a family of a Brahmana depends for his further reformation upon initiation into acceptance of a sacred thread and many other reformatory processes. But a person who chants the holy name of the Lord, even if born in a family of chandalas, dog-eaters, does not need reformation. Simply by chanting Hare Krishna, he immediately becomes purified and becomes as good as the most learned Brahmins. Sridhar Swami especially remarks in this connection, Anena pujyatvam lakshyate. Some caste Brahmanas remark that by chanting Hare Krishna, purification begins. Of course, that depends on the individual process of chanting, but this remark of Sridhar Swami's is completely applicable if one chants the holy name of the Lord without offense, for he immediately becomes more than a Brahmana. As Sridhar Swami says, Pujyatvam, he immediately becomes as respectable as a most learned Brahmana and can be allowed to perform Vedic sacrifices. If simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord one becomes sanctified instantly, then what can be said of those persons who see the Supreme Lord face to face and who understand the descent of the Lord, as Devahuti understands Kapiladev? Maybe we should pause for a moment. There's so much here. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was appreciating this point that one, by chanting the holy name, by taking, I'll post this verse now, we're about to see it, that as bell metal is turned to gold when mixed with mercury in an alchemical process, so one who is properly trained and initiated by a bona fide spiritual master immediately becomes a Brahmana. So that word sadhya, immediately, or elsewhere, I think in the, where is that? Maybe it's in Padma Purana or somewhere, aprarabdha palam papam, that all of these different forms of sinful activity, when we engage in Vishnu Bhakti Rata, when we're engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in that verse it's stated kramena, that one gradually, one slowly is freed from those sinful reactions by engagement in devotional service. But the power of the Maha Mantra is such that just by chanting the holy name, Tannamadhena, Tannamadeya, Shravananu Kirtanad, then instantly, sadhya, one is freed from all one's past difficulties. Never mind seeing the Lord face to face. And I was thinking about the purport of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur a couple of verses ago that Ekendra Prabhu pointed out, the guna pravaha, this affectionate glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada translated it in the general sense of that he's the Lord of the gunas, the different qualities. But I liked that little glimpse at Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, that the Lord has affection for his devotees, and out of that affection, he's coming down and coming as an avatar to give us his mercy, that affection. And if we return that affection by giving our attention to the holy name, then all success can be there. Any further comments at the current moment, Guru Maharaj? All right, I'll continue reading. Usually, initiation depends on the bona fide spiritual master who directs the disciple. If he sees that a disciple has become competent and purified by the process of chanting, he offers the sacred thread to the disciple, just so that he will be recognized as 100% equal with a Brahmana. This is also confirmed in the Hari Bhakti Vilas by Sri Sanatan Goswami. As a base metal, like bell metal, can be changed into gold by a chemical process, any person can similarly be changed into a Brahmana by Diksha Vidhana, the initiation process. It is sometimes remarked that by the chanting process, one begins to purify himself and can take birth in his next life in a Brahmana family and then be reformed. But at this present moment, even those who are born in the best Brahmana families are not reformed, nor is there any certainty that they are actually born of Brahmana fathers. Formerly, the Garbhodhana reformatory system was prevalent, but at the present moment, there is no such Garbhodhana or seed-giving ceremony. Under these circumstances, no one knows if a man is factually born of a Brahmana father. Whether one has acquired the qualification of a Brahmana depends on the judgment of the bona fide spiritual master. He bestows upon the disciples the position of a Brahmana by his own judgment. When one is accepted as a Brahmana in the sacred thread ceremony under the Pancharatrika system, then he is Dvija, twice born. That is confirmed by Sanatana Goswami, Dvijatvam Jayate. That's from the bell metal turning to gold verse. Dvijatvam Jayate. By the process of initiation by the spiritual master, a person is accepted as a Brahmana in his purified state of chanting the holy name of the Lord. He then makes further progress to become a qualified Vaishnava, which means that the Brahminical qualification is already acquired. So this is our process for becoming free from the material contamination. I was just hearing in a class yesterday a verse in the second chapter of the first canto quoted, Bhejire munayo tagre bhagavantam adhokshajam satvam vishuddham kshemaya kalpante yenutaniha. That the material qualities of this world can be overcome through, as exemplified by great sages who worshiped the Lord, Agre, formerly. And if we follow in their footsteps, Anu, then we'll similarly become free from the material contaminations of this world, particularly the recommendation of chanting the holy name of the Lord, because in previous ages there were opportunities for worshiping the Lord or by meditation. In previous ages there were other opportunities, but our state in this current age of Kali is that all of us are unclean, and none of us can study the Vedas properly. In Ram Lila, I was just hearing there was a pastime where one Shudra was attempting to study the Vedas, and Ram killed him. This is improper. So who are we to be qualified to study the Vedas? What is our qualification to perform any kind of worship? What Brahminical qualification do we have? None. But we do have the qualification to chant the holy name. Although unclean, we immediately become clean by chanting the holy name. Although unqualified, unscholarly, we immediately become so scholarly through the chanting of the holy name. That's our saving grace. Nayamatma pravachanena labhya na medhaya na bahuna shudena. Not by hearing a bunch or by our own independent intelligence, not by pravachan, not by speaking so many different things, but the Lord himself chooses whom he reveals himself to. And here we're seeing in these verses that he's so merciful that he's revealing himself even to those who are the lowest caste. He's revealing himself particularly through his holy name. And Srila Prabhupada points out several times in the purport, never mind seeing him face to face. How fortunate is such a person, how purifying that must be. So, any further comments, Guru Maharaj?
There's a contrast here by Srila Prabhupada between the smarta process and the process of Pancharatrika Vidhi. According to the smarta process, according to the Vedic standards, one becomes a Brahmin practically by birth, because the Garbhodhan samskaras are observed in so many ways. This person is assumed to be qualified as a Brahmin. But in the present age, by default, everyone is Shudra, Kalo Shudra Sambhava. So the Pancharatric method of Brahminical initiation is there. And in Prabhupada's estimation, that Pancharatriki method means chanting of the holy name especially. I'm going to stop here, see what, let you carry on.
We have a comment or a question from Praveen Krishna Prabhu. So is it correct to say that chanting Hare Krishna is also a process of Vedic reformation, samskara? If so, then is it so freely being done that one may wonder that many non-devotees may be chanting the holy name here and there, but the sinful activities do not stop? How can we understand that?
This is not just one of the rituals. Chanting Hare Krishna is not just a ritualistic performance in conformity with the Vedas. That's one of the offenses in chanting of the holy name, is to think that that's what it is. The chanting, together with the chanting of the chanting along with devotees, puts one in touch with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, directly. But it's nothing like Vedic performances, although it may seem so. I hope that's makes some sort of sense.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. I was reminded of, oh, you have something more?
No, I'm just, it's the toughest part of the afternoon here right now, so I want to keep up.
I was reminded of your conversation here in Hawaii with your godbrother Shanti Parayana Prabhu, in which you were talking about deputizing and who is qualified to be a Brahmana. And I thought in my own case, Kushamata was begging you, we need help on the altar. And so, with this opportunity to become a Brahmana is such a, it seems like such a lofty position, but actually it's the flip as you just described. It's actually the position of a Vaishnava. That's such a lofty position. That's the real opportunity. And so to be given a line, of spiritual masters, never mind seeing the Lord face to face. How about seeing one's spiritual master face to face? How about the opportunity to serve the Vaishnavas, to become the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord? And then maybe the Lord will be pleased with us and manifest. And therefore, Vivernute Tanung Swam. If he so chooses, then he can manifest himself in the heart. But in the meantime, the opportunity to be with other Vaishnavas that's the real blessing, in my estimation. All right, if there's no other comments or questions here, perhaps we will continue with the next famous verse. Mahesh Pandit Prabhu, you lead beautiful kirtans. Would you also like to read? Mahesh Pandit Prabhu. How about Krishna Kaunteya Prabhu? Are you available to read a verse? Text 7. Praveen Krishna Prabhu has a question right before we move on. So the dog eater is not engaging in any sinful activity anymore? Guru Maharaj, do you have a reply to this?
Generally, we see that. He may be born in a family of dog eaters, but now he's purified and he gives up those activities. Or even somehow, if he's forced to conform to that standard, still that's only external. He's still counted as purified.
Thank you. When you're ready, Krishna Kaunteya. Oh, something else?
Well, if it would be all right, there was a couple of passages in Srila Vishwanath's commentary on the verse under discussion that address that very point that Praveen Krishna just brought up. And one is that he says that Yeah, he quotes from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that it was understood that the low qualities of the dog eater are the cause of his disqualification for performing sacrifice, and the sin by which he attains such low qualities in this life is called the prarabdha sin. And he mentions that verse right after he says that such a person that's being described in our verse today, he becomes worshipable like a brahmana, performer of the soma sacrifice. This implies that this takes place because of destruction of prarabdha, sinful reactions experienced in this life as low birth. And then he quotes Rupa Goswami. So that seems to settle it for me anyway.
Thank you. Yeah, beautiful. Krishna Kanteya Prabhu,
Okay.
text 7.
Well, my pronunciation is weak, but okay. Aho bhatta swa pako tu kari ya yagya date nama tu yam te pushta pashta te yuga va samira Vamanocha Nama Rita Te Yat Yete.
With your permission, I'd like to take over this verse. From here. Oh, how glorious are they whose tongues are chanting your holy name. Even if born in the families of dog eaters, such persons are worshipable. Persons who chant the holy name of your Lordship must have executed all kinds of austerities and fire sacrifices and achieved all the good manners of the Aryans. To be chanting the holy name of your Lordship, they must have bathed at holy places of pilgrimage, studied the Vedas, and fulfilled everything required. Purport. As it is stated in the previous verse, a person who has once offensively chanted the holy name of God becomes immediately eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices. One should not be astonished by this statement of Srimad Bhagavatam. One should not disbelieve or think, how by chanting the holy name of the Lord can one become a holy man to be compared to the most elevated Brahmana? To eradicate such doubts in the minds of unbelievers, this verse affirms that the stage of chanting of the holy name of the Lord is not sudden, but that the chanters have already performed all kinds of Vedic rituals and sacrifices. It is not very astounding, for no one in this life can chant the holy name of the Lord unless he has passed all lower stages, such as performing the Vedic ritualistic sacrifices, studying the Vedas, and practicing good behavior like that of the Aryans. All this must first have been done. Just as a student in a law class is to be understood to have already graduated from general education, anyone who is engaged in the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, must have already passed all lower stages. The Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavai Pashtacha Deshatarane. So the argument is given that someone says, yes, if he chants, he can be purified. Then gradually he can become as qualified as a Brahmin. But here it's indicated he's already done everything. He's bathed in the holy rivers. He's performed all the auspicious ceremonies. He's performed, so he's done everything. Otherwise, how is it possible that he's chanting the holy name? Because the holy chanting of the holy name is higher than all these other things. So Prabhupada gives the example that a law student must have already passed the lower stages, general education. Otherwise, how is he there in the law department? So a devotee, a person who's chanting the holy name of Krishna, must have already attained everything in the previous life. That's what's claimed here. Not only what's claimed, what's asserted or understood to be factual conclusion. It is said that those who simply chant the holy name with the tip of the tongue are glorious. One does not even have to chant the holy name and understand the whole procedure, namely the offenseless stage, and pure stage. If the holy name is sounded on the tip of the tongue, that is sufficient. It is said herein that Nam, a singular number, one name, Krishna or Rama, is sufficient. It is not that one has to chant all the holy names of the Lord. All the holy names of the Lord. The holy names of the Lord are innumerable, and one does not have to chant all the names to prove that he's already undergone all the processes of Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. If one chants only once only, it is to be understood that he has already passed all the examinations. Not to speak of those who are chanting always, 24 hours a day. This is called kaimucha, what to speak of. If one is purified by constant chanting, then if one is purified by chanting once, then what to speak of those who are constantly chanting? Where's the question of they're not being purified? It is specifically said here, Tubhyam, unto you only. One must chant God's name, not, as the Mayavadi philosophers say, any name, such as a demigod's name or the names of God's energies. Only the holy name of the Supreme Lord will be effective. Anyone who compares the holy name of the Supreme Lord to the names of the demigods, to the names of the demigods is called Pashandi, or an offender. Yeah, I won't comment further here, but these are all wonderful glorifications of the absolute potency of the names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is this Haridas of Haridas?
Yes, ma'am.
How wonderful to see you.
That's my statement to you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Would you like to take over and read here for a while? Is that okay?
Yes, I can do that.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hari. The holy name has to be chanted to please the Supreme Lord and not for any sense gratification or professional purpose.
if this pure mentality is there, then even though a person is born of a low family, such as a dog eater's, he is so glorious that not only has he purified himself, but he is quite competent to deliver others. He is competent to speak on the importance of the transcendental name, just as Thakur Haridas did. He was apparently born in a family of Mohammedans, but because he was chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord offenselessly, Lord Chaitanya empowered him to become the authority, or acharya, of spreading the name. It did not matter that he was born in a family which was not following the Vedic rules and regulations. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Advaita Prabhu accepted him as an authority because he was offenselessly chanting the name of the Lord. Authorities like Advaita Prabhu and Lord Chaitanya immediately accepted that he had already performed all kinds of austerities, studied the Vedas, and performed all sacrifices. That is automatically understood. There is a hereditary class of brahmanas called the Smarta Brahmanas, however, who are of the opinion that even if such persons who are chanting the holy name of the Lord are accepted as purified, they still have to perform the Vedic rites or await their next birth in a family of brahmanas so that they can perform the Vedic rituals. But actually, this is not the case. Such a man does not need to wait for the next birth to become purified. He is at once purified. It is understood that he has already performed all sorts of rites. It is the so-called brahmanas who actually have to undergo different kinds of austerities before reaching that point of purification. There are many other Vedic performances which are not described here. All such Vedic rituals have been already performed by the chanters of the holy name. The word Jehuvu means that the chanters of the holy name have already performed all kinds of sacrifices. Sasnu means that they have already traveled to all the holy places of pilgrimage and taken part in purificatory activities at those places. They are called Arya because they have already finished all these requirements, and therefore they must be among the Aryans or those who have qualified themselves to become Aryans. Aryan refers to those who are civilized, whose manners are regulated according to the Vedic rituals. Any devotee who is chanting the holy name of the Lord is the best kind of Aryan. Unless one studies the Vedas, one cannot become an Aryan, but it is automatically understood that the chanters have already studied all the Vedic literature. The specific word used here is anuchuhu, which means that because they have already completed all those recommended acts, they have become qualified to be spiritual masters. The very word grananti, which is used in this verse, means to be already established in the perfectional stage of ritualistic performances. If one is seated on the bench of a high court and is giving judgment on cases, it means that he has already passed all legal exams and is better than those who are engaged in the study of law or those expecting to study law in the future. In a similar way, persons who are chanting the holy name are transcendental to those who are factually performing the Vedic rituals and those who expect to be qualified, or in other words, those who are born in families of brahmanas but have not yet undergone the reformatory processes and who therefore expect to study the Vedic rituals and perform the sacrifices in the future. There are many Vedic statements in different places saying that anyone who chants the holy name of the Lord becomes immediately freed from conditional life, and that anyone who hears the holy name of the Lord, even though born of a family of dog eaters, also becomes liberated from the clutches of material entanglement. I could say a short anecdote that I read and heard from one of the followers of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who Srila Prabhupada's godbrother, who came from a Brahmana background and who reported that when he came to the ashram and came into the association of the Vaishnava devotees, it was a little difficult for him because not everybody was up to the kind of Brahminical standard that he was used to. So in different ways, he had to make an adjustment to accommodate a major shift in his thinking that the Brahminical path he followed throughout his life up until the time he associated with the Gaudiya Math and the Vaishnavas, that was the best thing there was. And when he got in that association, he saw what he perceived as discrepancies compared to the Brahminical standards he was used to. And then he had to adjust to think that, well, I guess despite those who are engaged in this path are actually higher. And that way his consciousness transformed into respecting the devotees for their engagement in bhakti instead of the Brahminical standards that he was used to, even though they appeared to be on the path of purifying themselves to become well-behaved, let's say, in etiquette and behavior, that he was able to, over time, change. That's usually not our case. We didn't have that problem exactly. We had the other problem of trying to come up to the right standard, even though maybe we had begun our chanting and didn't quite know how we could do it, and still are working on it. So it's a work in progress, but I noted that was a nice explanation or realization applicable to the verse.
Any further comments, Guru Maharaj?
No, I don't think I have more to say here. It's except how wonderful it is, the whole bhatta. It's so wonderful that the holy name is so exalted that anyone who's serving the holy name by chanting or hearing becomes super qualified. The Brahmins are somewhat qualified, relatively speaking, but the devotee who chants the holy name is operating from the absolute platform. So how wonderful it is. Hare Krishna.
All right, Krishna. I was thinking if it would be all right, I could read at least some of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on this verse, which is
Yes.
quite sizable. He says, "It has just been said that the outcast becomes immediately qualified for the Soma sacrifice. But that is nothing, since much more is achieved than becoming qualified for sacrifice. This is most astonishing, Ahobhata. The name has to appear just on the tip of the tongue of the outcast. It does not have to be fully on the tongue. It does not have to be pronounced fully. It is present, vartate, on the tongue, but not completely. Only one name is chanted once, not many times. If one were to chant many of your tubhyam names many times with the full tongue, how much more effect it would have. Tubhyam can also mean he chants to please you or bring you under his control. The outcast who chants incompletely just one name is the best guru, Gariyan. He becomes qualified to teach the mantra with the name within it to others, for example, Diksha Guru. Then let the outcast perform sacrifice, study of the Vedas, and austerities. They have already done this. What to speak of one such person, others also who chant your name have performed all austerities and sacrifices. This is specifically mentioned because of no statement to indicate they did not perform all elements, angas, of all sacrifices and austerities. They have completed all austerities with all elements. They have performed oblations in all sacrifices with all elements. They have bathed in all holy places. They and not others are worthy of respect, Arya. They have completed study of the Vedas, Brahma. Amarakosha says, Anuchanaha means a teacher, a person proficient in recitation of the Vedas with its angas. The words are in the past tense, whereas grinanti is in the present tense. They chant in the present, but have completed all the other actions, such as austerities. These other actions are no longer performed and will not be performed in the future. Why would they do those actions now? This indicates that the devotees have no qualification for such actions. The perfect tense indicates completion. They have no regard for them. They are a waste of energy. One should not explain that the present tense of grinanti indicates that they continuously chant and that they only achieve the effect by chanting continuously and not by chanting just once. That is contradicted by other statements using the word sakrit only once. And then he quotes from Bhagavatam 5:135. Naivang vidha purushakara urukramasya pungsang tarangri rajasa jita sadgunanam chitrang vidura vigata sakrida dadita yannamadeyam aduna sajahati bandham. Such power is not surprising from persons who have conquered the six senses by the dust from the lotus feet of the Lord, since even an outcast becomes immediately free of bondage of karma by chanting the Lord's name once. And Radhesha Prabhu has supplied our...
It's all right. It's just Srila Prabhupada's translation of the same thing you just read, just in case anybody wants to read it. But it's what you just read.
Okay.
I am curious to understand, though, this. There seems to be a difference. Guru Maharaj, this Grananti is stating that this is present tense, that they're chanting constantly. And that's a contradiction to other statements where it mentions just chanting once. And it seems to me that there is a difference between those who are performing sinful activities and then chanting once, becoming purified, and then maybe still performing sinful activities, as opposed to those who are chanting constantly. And it seems to me that what's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying is that those who are chanting constantly, that's symptomatic of one who has performed all of these other activities, not necessarily someone who's just chanted once. That person may not have performed all the other activities. Is that a correct understanding?
Let me review what he's saying here. Doesn't look to me, let's see. No, Chakravarti Thakur says one should not explain that the present tense of Grananti indicates that they continuously chant.
Oh, I see. One should not explain. Yeah, okay. I skipped over the should not. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. I think what threw me was the statement that is contradicted by other statements using the word sakrit. So I thought it was contradicting what was just said, but it's contradicting statements that of people who are saying that you need to chant constantly. I understand now. The contradicting threw me. Thank you for clarification. Any further comments or questions here? I think we're we're at our time frame. If we have someone volunteering for kirtan, forgive me, Krishna Kanteya Prabhu. I called you out to read. It was such a long purport, but I would like to hear your kirtan, if you would like to chant, Prabhu.
Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Gaur, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaur, Brahmanandi, Hari Hari Bo, Jai Om Vishnu Padam Saparaj Jagataya. Asota Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Dasakra Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Savior of the world Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Bring Sake Ho Sri Krishna, Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath, Shyamakun Radhakun, Giridhara Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. Jai Sri Guru Rangaranga Dasma Rajkosha.
Jai, Jai. Thank you so much, Krishna Kanteya Prabhu, Hare Krishna. And thank you everyone for being here, especially Maharaj. Thank you so much for giving your association. And thank you, Haridas Prabhu, for reading and commenting today. Extra special treat for everyone. Thank you. And thank you, Radhesha Prabhu, for your comments.
Jai. Wow.
Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Lord Nande.